game number 1, starting off on Death Aura. In the top left, as the Red Terran, we have Soul on Team Makers. And in the bottom right, for Team Star, he is Kas. So, Kas beats Neeb. Neeb has not been doing so well in tournaments lately. He might do better in the upcoming DreamHack tournament. As, you know, let's be real, his round robin group is almost guaranteed to place him top 3, if not still top 2. But he's really struggling versus the Koreans and the Europeans right now. And I think he would even struggle currently, right now, with the way the tournaments have been going for him. I think he would really struggle against Australia. So, certainly Neeb's on the downtrend. But Kas... As my cat sticks his tail on my face. Kas has not been bad. It's not like Neeb lost to a guy in the round of 128 or something like that. Kas has actually been fairly steady. Problem is that he doesn't really have a lot of name power right now. You know, years and years ago he would have. But it's always kind of been a question mark of him of like, are you retiring? Are you laddering? Like, what are you doing? So his middling results of like maybe around a 32 most of the time, occasional around 16s, and yeah, in the last 4 or 5 months, like occasionally in the round of 8, doesn't really get talked about. If he had ever made it to the round of 4, then it's absolutely talked about, but I don't think he has yet. So it kind of sucks, but despite being a fairly consistent player right now, and beating players a little like above him, what we consider above him, he doesn't really get talked about very much. But then you destroy a guy like Neeb. Destroy being a harsh word, I suppose. Then you kill a guy like Neeb. Take him out. And that's gonna cause some talk. That's gonna be a talk of the town. Plus, I finally get a chance to actually cast this guy. Cast the Kas. Where I usually am casting other guys at Kira Marine, right? So it's cool to see him. But he's one of the oldest pro gamers we have against one of the newer pro gamers. Soul. He's been trying for quite some time at this point. But even though he's always on the verge of being the next great Terran, his performances in tournaments haven't really reflected that quite yet. Occasionally taking a round of 4 match that's surprising, I guess, in the Open Cups, but well, maybe he's won one, maybe? Yeah. It's not super reliable. When it comes down to TvT, I do believe this is where Kas has been thriving most. If Clem is taken out before the round of 4, before the finals, it's generally by a TvT. So Kas could do well. Kia Marine, even losing a couple of TvTs against this guy. So it's specifically because it's TvT, I do feel better for Kas. I actually don't give him beating Neeb a ton of credibility, both because it's a different matchup and because Neeb is just, as I said, like, I don't know, something's weird, man. Something's wrong right now. Or he's fine on ladder, but his tournament results aren't doing so hot. Yeah, that's where I stand. I think Kas has a really good shot to beat Soul, but right now Soul is probably the player everyone expects to win. I expect him to win. I think his TvT is a fine matchup for him. Maybe it's not his best, but it's certainly not his worst. He's fine. And he is all around the better player, and there's a little more expectations of this young guy. Whereas Kas, very few expectations. Openers were definitely different, but have resulted in a fairly even game. 30 workers for Soul, 28 workers of Kas, Raven to Raven. Reaper gets a little bit of a scout, little bit. Even though he doesn't see the 3rd CC, he does know, or sorry, the National CC, he does know it's there. And thus TvT is born with the super normal openers. Third CC faster for Soul, but Koss will eventually get to a third CC. He is prioritizing Vikings and Stim. So he will have a pretty strong push. Actually, Soul going for a third CC on location is dangerous. Already delayed, thanks to a Reaper from Koss. But then with Koss choosing to go for a push more than emphasize third CC, it's actually kind of the worst case scenario there for Soul. Not because it's a third CC, but because it's on location. Fairly common to have this push up against someone going for a faster third CC, but the fact that it's on location is going to make it very difficult to actually hold against. As I said, Koss will eventually get his, and it's actually better for him now that he's in control to put that third CC on location. But he knows that Soul has been a little bit greedy here. He really wants to punish that third. The Raven could get auto turrets down, be very effective. The Vikings should have air control, unless they're mismicroed. Soul does have 2 Ravens of his own, so 3 auto turrets for him, only 2 for Koss. Looks like Koss is target firing on top of the tanks of Soul too, so 1 goes down, but Soul takes down all 3 of the tanks of Koss, and oh my god, that was actually not good at all. At the end of the day, Koss's force was not strong enough to actually defeat a Terran player defensively set up with tanks. Their army supplies weren't that different, but the power of the Vikings that can happen with Koss's build can generally give you more pushing power, but it's slower usually. I think going for the Blitz, really wanting to deny that third CC, I think that kind of ruined Koss's potential. He could have maybe held more of a contain and picked off units as they came out. Instead, yeah, he kind of just bull rushed in there and didn't go so hot. So Soul has the third CC on location, but it was delayed significantly. First the Reaper and then with the attack, so it's only now finishing up. Koss has bridged that gap, but Soul is also up about 7 workers, and that still means he's going to have a better economy. Can Koss use the faster stim that he got to a good effect? Faster stim usually also means faster combat shields. Looks like in this case it did not. Soul stim actually finished as I was talking, so no advantages whatsoever with that. Not that Koss is in an unwinnable situation. Despite being pushed back like he was, it was still a fairly even trade. And Koss is still at a very similar army supply. But it, again, means that he probably won't be able to bust his opponent. Ooh, a Liberator in the natural. Sounds like doing some damage. As Koss moves in, hoping to catch Soul, not paying attention. Soul is paying attention. Throws down auto turrets. Not enough Vikings, though, to beat back Koss's. So this is more of the push potential I was talking about, where you acknowledge you can't really run into a defensive Terran, but you can take some decent trades. Your air control will force them to scan, or you take out a tank or 2, and the Vikings can try and take out those Ravens, which it just did alongside a medevac, I believe. Still got a medevac. Koss, it'd be a little dangerous now to reinforce across the map, but theoretically he could. He's actually going to go for a 4th on... Wow, on location. Wow, okay. Going for a 4th? Alright, yeah, so is Soul. On location as well. I mean, the same reason that reinforcing would be dangerous, a 4th on location is also dangerous. We're getting to that point where you both have 5 barracks, and you have medevacs, and it is very easy to lose track of someone having 16 Marines headed across the map, or 12 in a tank, or what have you. So, it's getting to that point where mobility really starts to thrive. And putting things on location can be a bit dangerous. But Koss is going to be able to get away with it. Soul might be doing a drop, but it's headed towards the main base. And a sensor tower is there to reveal it. He's got a Raven that might scout the 4th on location, but it can't do much about it. Koss playing some very, very good TvT. It does seem like, it seems that even as we weren't, as I was saying, paying that much attention to Koss, he's had a solid grasp of TvT this entire time. Good Marine scouting from Koss. It's just a simple group of units, so not going to do very much. And Vikings still alive from the early game do push back the drop to the right side. Very nice defense from Koss. Would also love to get that Raven, but Vikings on the wrong portion of the map for that. Koss is faster to his 2-2. I mean, this is, I'm quite impressed. I mean, Koss can have a solid understanding of TvT and a solid TvT in general, and still, you know, have problems, still make mistakes, but I feel like Koss is actually playing the better macro game. It's certainly more about engagements. As this particular game goes on, it's going to be all about engagement. Someone also might decide to go into starports first, and that's always the tricky thing about later TVTs. But right now, it's like, who gets a better engagement? Concaves, tanks sieging up first. I guess Koss has that 2-2 upgrade, so it's also, can he hit a timing with that? Can he actually take an engagement when that upgrade is still in effect? Got 2 sensor towers even still, even after Soul took out the 1. Instantly replaced it. They are pretty good structures to have. Planetary finally finishes up for Koss. He was mining from it for a long time before making the planetary. He had other things to do. The armies are starting to move out as they both get to maxing out here. Koss is going to break down one of the rocks. To the left, actually. So the right ones are still up. I guess maybe kind of like a defensive maneuver there. Soul has a couple of drops to the left, to the right side, sorry, so the left side doesn't look so hot, especially because Soul didn't expect the army there, so his siege up was very, very late. Soul taking a very bad fight, loses so many of his tanks, now in urgency, picks up his Marines again to head towards that main base. He's about to fly over a bunch of Marines, fly on top of those tanks. Koss, with one swift move, has just won this game. Damn, not only was Soul unprepared for that, with less army, he also did not have 2-2 finish. Still doesn't have 2-2 finish. Oh my god, Koss slapping down this kid. Damn. And Soul, probably thinking of a longer game here with the 5th command center, is cut short. GG. GG. I didn't realize Hearthstone was streaming his match. Let's bring it to the screen here. While I be right back. Perfectly timed. We're on Submarine, the shortest map in the map pool. In the bottom right, he's the red Terran Sol. And in the top left, as a blue Terran, he is Koss. He's got that point on the board. A bit surprising, I'm sure, for people who recognize one of their names over the other. It's funny, if you're super old school and you were around 7 years ago, Koss actually might be the one you're expecting to win. But unlike some other players who have been around since the beginning, who actually have had consistent, improvement. Yeah, they're around 8 years ago, and they weren't the best 8 years ago, but they're still very competitive right now.
Sub received. Thank you for a piece.
And have been competitive in their region, I guess, this entire time. Koss actually hasn't really been competitive in the European region so much. I mean, it's an incredibly difficult place to be competitive in, because when I talk about competitive, I mean, qualifying, for instance, for DreamHack. Koss, he actually might have. Hold on, before I just talk out of my ass here. If he did, he didn't do that well. Actually, I think he did. Shit. Anyways, what I was going to say is that round of 16, which would have made me foolproof. Anyways. Koss really isn't hitting that round of 16. He's not hitting the round of 8. He's not the talk of the town like a Clem would be, or even a Sol, who is constantly thanked for his customs with players. Koss did fall off, so people look at this and are like, yeah, Sol should win. I looked at that and said Sol should win. But not, Sol might have looked like the worst of the two, because he lost, right? Easy peasy. In TvT, I don't think TvT is a particular weakness for him. It's not a particular strength. I think most Terrans TvZ is where they feel really confident, but still. Koss made it look like Sol was weak in that TvT. Made it look like Koss was the better player, because there was no shenanigans. There was no mind games or turtle play or whatever. That was a solid build, solid read, solid macros, solid micro. Like, he actually just straight up outplayed Sol. So, I don't know. Maybe this is like the resurgence of Koss. He's kind of been, low-key, getting some good results. And if he were to make it into the round of 4, I mean, that's like, he's actually just on the improvement path, and that's awesome. That is awesome. Hellion opener from Koss as he takes a high ground expansion. Very safe to do on Submarine. Either you want to go for the expansion on the high ground with Hellions, or you want to go for the factory expand, which is what Sol did, I believe. Yeah, he did. Because the map is that short, it is just a little bit scarier. Thank you very much, La Demo, for the Prime sub. Koss adding on the Hellions and a Liberator. We'll be looking to do some aggressive tactics here. The Hellions can be defensive. They will help against any of the Triple Reaper Hellion attacks that are fairly popular in TvT and certainly popular on this map. But they can also be used offensively. And Koss could very much so use 4, or now in this case 6 Hellions to run past a Cyclone, kill these units, just ignore the Cyclone, and then buddy up with the Liberator that will either take the Cyclone's attention away or hit this main base, or vice versa, or what have you. But that should be his plan. I mean, you may make 4 Hellions, 2 or 4 Hellions just to be defensive, and maybe, okay, I guess I'll poke, like, whatever. You don't make 6 to 8 Hellions and go, yeah, I'm good defensively. Like, no, you don't do that. He is looking for the push. The Liberator is sieging up potentially in the natural. I think the main would be the much better shot, and that's exactly where he's going to. Cyclone has moved to the main in preparation, and you do see that, but he's got to figure something else is on the way. Hellions, as I said, they can ignore a Cyclone, but that tank sieging up was the new addition that really cemented the defense, and this has actually been a bit of a disaster. Just a tad. Without that tank, he can more aggressively move in, micro against the Marines as well, but with the tank consistently shooting at him, it wasn't really going to work out. So Sol, very nice defense, even without a bunker. However, had the slightly later command center even with Ka's high ground placement. So Ka still comes out ahead there with 3 workers above and has a faster 3rd CC on location. I mean, you got a little bit of scouting with that, but this is still kind of a confident thing to do. Oh, the Cyclone wants the Raven so bad. It does, but it's not going to get it. Adeline gets the kill. Oh my god, Cass! Shit, man! Shit! He saved that Hellion too? This guy actually looks really good right now. Anyways, it is bold of Cass to do this, because Sol does have units that would do a fine attack, especially on a very short map. So 2 Ravens, handful of tanks. Sol has a potential here, depending on how he can use his Ravens. But Cass has a perfectly fine setup. So much about positioning, and the position has already been lost. Ooh, the CC is so close at being done. Auto turrets do not come down for Cass. Oh, nice target fire there from Sol. And this is now a disaster for Cass. This is a straight up disaster. I called this a disaster, but really it was more of an oopsie. This was a disaster. Oh, he was so close to finishing that 3rd CC. Oh my god, this is such a different game. If that 3rd CC finishes, he doesn't even bother defending it. He just lifts it. But he felt the need to defend it, because if he didn't defend it right then and there, he probably wasn't going to defend it in 30 seconds to a minute. So he tries to jump on top of Sol, and Sol takes out the Raven, which even with the auto turrets, I'm not sure Cass would have won that fight. He was desperate. At least he gets the cancel, is what you could say. At least he got the cancel. It wasn't an entire command center killed. So he planted back, this time on the main base. But Sol now has basically an entire command center ahead. An entire orbital ahead of his opponent. And triple SCV production this entire time. Like, bleh. Bleh. Cass, not just unable to defend his 3rd CC, lost a very useful unit in that Raven in his attempt to save it. I think he lost a tank as well. Marine's gonna scout a 3rd CC in a large army, and he's gonna go, oh no. Honestly, Cass knows. He would have figured this was there. You don't get attacked by that squad and go, oh, that was clearly an all-in. Nah, Cass knew it was just a regular old push from a Terran. And he was going to be up against someone with 3 CC. And he has this little bit of a time before the economy of the 3rd CC really kicks in, where maybe he looks okay. Where his army supply isn't that bad. And then give it maybe a minute, minute and a half, and Sol being up in workers and actually effectively mining with those workers will make his production just boost very, very far ahead of Sol. Give it a minute and Sol will be up like 30 supply. But, yeah. It's Cass, I mean, he can try and... He either could have tried to force an issue by moving out, which would have been a very bold move from him, or he can try and take a very good defensive engagement, and that's what he's being forced into now. He did not stop making Vikings, so while Sol also didn't stop, he was a little bit later to them. So I think that Sol is a bit surprised he did so many Vikings, honestly. And while he doesn't win the air war, he still has sieged up close enough to the command center to take it out. So Cass still loses, but I do think Sol was like, what the hell, it's a lot of Vikings. And if they had been in position faster, they might have stopped his frontline tanks from going down. Now he just has Vikings providing vision without a scan going, I guess we're helping, but they're not going to help when it comes to the full might of Sol's army crashing down on Cass. Sol maybe not wanting to give away this game, despite having a very superior army. Doesn't want to run into it. Just going to maneuver out. Yep. 3rd tank about to pop. Vikings trying to do what they can, but... The Vikings land and might get some shots on the tanks, which is the most ideal, but the amount of Marines is just too much here from Sol. GG. Sol brings it back to 1-1. And while Cass still, I mean, he looked impressive. It finally happened that his risks were not rewarded. He thought he was in the driver's seat, and he was not so much. It is He was capable of defending that third CC, but he was not in position. Thank you, Quelf, for the 2-month resub. Eternal Empire for our final map. I wouldn't be surprised if Koss does the similar thing. Don't know about his actual build choice, but I'm talking about 3rd CC on location, 4th CC on location. Koss seems very confident in this matchup. And confidence is good. Sometimes confidence is a slow and... What is it? What is the line from Darkest Dungeon? Anyway. Sometimes it's a killer. And in that game, it was a little bit of a killer. But that was less about confidence and more about just being out of position. Because his army was fine enough. It just wasn't there. So I wouldn't be surprised to see on a bigger map, more macro potential, Koss being the one steering the game a little bit with his eagerness to expand. I would not be surprised if he does that. But in the bottom left, already headed for a gas first, as you would in TvT. It is Soul. On the top right, ditto, gas first, it is Koss. It's far more interesting to see who adds on a second gas than it is about the first gas. Barracks, out of the way. Koss did this in the first game. Soul had to kind of do a little bit more of a scout. A little bit of the, oh, are you T-Rexing me? Oh no, I'm okay. Same thing's gonna happen here. If Soul scouts, Soul might not scout because he might be going for a factory expand. Maybe. Koss slaps down that gas. Alright, Soul's not going for it. Soul should scout then. If he doesn't scout, it's a bit risky on his part. Koss could be T-Rexing him. But I guess since Koss has been the one expanding first and setting it on location and being just a little bit greedier, I guess Soul's like, he's not gonna T-Rex me, I'm fine. And he is right. Koss is not T-Rexing him. So now it's a question of what is he following up with. Because, hey, T-Rex is the most important reason to scout, probably. It's also, you know, nice to scout they're going for either their own one rack expand or a factory expand. Now Soul doesn't know about this. It's Soul. He wants that SCV at home, man. All about the macro. Maybe he follows up with his own Hellions. You know, Koss opened up with that Hellion game on Submarine, and it really didn't work out very well, offensively. But I kind of talked up how it could be a defensive maneuver. Soul could be doing that. Soul could be getting it defensively, preparing for what could be a factory build, and it is. Slow and insidious killer, there we go. Thanks, guys. There it is. There's the Hellion opener. I don't think Soul's gonna go aggressive with it. But I really don't have a strong reason as to why he couldn't. I feel like since he defended Koss's aggression so easily, he might be like, oh, it's not a good build. Because it is arguable that an A Hellion opener is good. Soul certainly made it look like a not good opener, I'll say that much. But Soul, going up to 4, is very well set up to defend against any amount of Hellions and Reapers Koss could make at this point, which is 3 Reapers and 2 Hellions. Exactly the attack I was talking about. This Hellion opener can help against. I love when this happens, because then I look a little bit smarter. I get a more direct example of when it's good and when it isn't. Nice. Koss is like, well, what do you got? He hasn't done any scouting himself. It's 4 Hellions. He does have the ramp choke on his side, but ooh, the grenades! Kind of, I don't know whose grenade was that, honestly. But the grenades in general helped Soul get a bit more of a concave and surround on top of Koss's army. I do not know who threw the grenade that bopped the Hellions to the right, but regardless, the Hellions get more of a surround on Cass's army. Plus, they're just more units for Soul. Soul is supposed to win that, even with a bit of the disadvantage of the choke. And he certainly does. 2 Hellions left over. Cass goes back home. Knows he's a slight bit behind in the SCVs. He's going to grab that 3rd, but not on location this time, alright? Maybe just a little bit too scary after that last game. 90% done command center gets killed. Yeah. I'd be scared of doing that on location too. Raven is immediately sent across the map to use auto turrets for harassment. Kind of does give you a little bit more of an idea of how they're going to use their tank starport army. And I said starport because it could be Vikings, could be Ravens. If they use their Raven offensively like this, first and foremost, maybe not going to save up for the energy for a push. Additionally, as they both send the Ravens across the map. There you go. 2 for 2. Additionally, it is kind of hoping that it is a Raven opener more than it is a immediately to Viking opener, which is a very fair thing to assume. Almost all Terran openers that have that starport, the 1-1-1 openers, are going to go for at least 1 Raven first before the Vikings, if not 2. And it is Cass going for 2 in this game, and Soul, well, he had a faster second Raven, so yeah. 2v2. Soul faster the Vikings. Cass going for some mech. Okay. Soul is going to have to remember this is an option and actually scout that. It's currently no scouting in the main done. Honestly, Soul, he might not even scan. You know, us Terrans are so greedy on our mules, but on top of general greediness, there is also just so much to be said about the scouting you can do when you're really good at this game without having to directly scan or having an observer or what have you. These guys are constantly doing things. They're constantly sending Marines out to get Xel'Nagas. They're constantly sending Marines out to see attack paths. They're constantly poking to see if there's open engagement, so that's also why pro gamers have less examples of games not ending when they should. That's also their scouting. So Soul is going to push here, and this is going to be kind of his scouting, and he should initially be like, wait, where are their Marines? And then figure out it's mech. Sometimes you see a decent number of Marines with mech, though, that it can be confusing. Like 6 or 8 Marines are there, and you're like, oh, well, I have a similar army, so it's the same thing. But it is just the tanks, and out-of-position Hellions. Auto turrets coming down on both sides, plenty, and it looks like far more for Cass, honestly. Cass had so many more auto turrets. What the hell happened? Oh my god. Well, Cass will not quite take out the last tank. Ooh, the friendly fire. Or the splash, I should say. And the tank takes out the Viking. Let's look out the tank. Nicely done. 2 Ravens survive for Cass, 0 Ravens for Soul, and Soul is entirely pushed back, and now also getting an idea of like, hey, is this mech? Has to consider what this means for momentum. When you're both doing the same exact thing, the fact that I'm down 6 workers and 10, 20 army supply is not that big of a deal in TvT, actually. Funnily enough, in some other matchups, you know, ZVZ, for instance, Roach versus Roach, if I'm down 20 army supply and we're both going Roach Ravager, very few people make, you know, good enough situations, make good enough concaves that they can bring back a straight-up army supply difference. In TvT, if you're doing the exact same thing, Marine tank versus Marine tank, 20 supply is nothing. 20 supply is a tank siege up appropriately. So, anyways, now that it's different, if Soul's like, well, shit, I'm now down in workers, down in army, and I've lost an army at a pretty critical point, so I'm replacing it, and I'm losing that momentum, I'm losing that aggression against a guy who is the weakest right now, then I am not in a good position. I am in a scary position. At least that would be going through my head. Now, Soul has got to have experience against mech players. Even if it's not the most common thing to do right now amongst the pros, it's still common enough on that ladder, and occasionally from the pros in TvT. So I think he knows he's not in an ideal situation. An ideal situation would be sieging up this 3rd and taking out tanks and stopping him from producing SCVs and, you know, all that good stuff. He got pushed back pretty quickly. So what does he do now? Faster 4th CC on location, probably even a faster 5th. try and get to a decent army and then maybe stop on those starports, right? Those are your options. Either maxing out as fast as possible on bio so you can really push and pull the mech player apart, or kind of pressuring the mech player while you actually go up to starports. And honestly, as you know, as TvT has evolved in Starcraft 2, at one point it was awesome watching Tasia or Maru drop on top of siege tanks and be awesome with fully maxed out Marauder armies. Doesn't happen that much anymore. Honestly, the answer to mech nowadays is to go about as swiftly as possible into your own Viking game, into your own air game, and force them to respond. It works so much better though when they feel under pressure. When the mech player thinks, oh my god, I need a lot of tanks because they could kill me, I'm still scared, and they don't build their own Vikings. It works so much better when they aren't building their own Vikings. But Koss, because he actually defended that, got his own 4th CC, I think he could start up Vikings already. And yeah, exactly. I think he could start up 2 starports already. Which I'm really glad to see him do. And this is without scouting, I believe. Yeah. So he just, that's the position he's in. He will probably figure Soul's doing the same thing. Because of what I just had this whole rant about that. Yeah. That's the way to do it nowadays against mech. But also because he hasn't seen much bio. And there hasn't been much aggression. And there's been no Doom drop attempts. They understand each other without necessarily scanning each other. Koss certainly has been historically one of the guys best with mech. A fan of mech. I mean, at one point you're kind of attributing it to him being an older pro. And this was, 5 years ago. So now he's even older. But I think he just actually enjoys the style of play. So he's pretty damn adept with it. Soul moving on to 6 Vikings at a time. Liberator range. He's got double armory as well, so he's going to catch up on those upgrades as quick as he can. He is making quite a fearsome air army. But Koss, he's not just going into additional starports. No reactors? He's not just going into additional starports. He's got Drilling Claws, Hellbats, it's transformation servos. So Hellbats, Thors, and Vikings. Transform faster, and Drilling Claws. And I gotta tell you, it's a bit of a meme to face someone around, Diamond or Masters who does Widow Mines in TvT. It's kind of a meme. It's a super obnoxious one. I don't think it really works out, but I actually like it when I see the pros add in a couple of Widow Mines. I think it's very annoying to play against, even if it doesn't quite work out as intended. They even got turbo boosters. I don't even know what the actual research upgrade is called, because no one cares. Ignite Afterburners, I think. This is a more effective upgrade for what it does than people give it credit for, but what it does is not that effective. This is funny. Well, Hellbats killing tanks. Certainly better for the Hellbats. Such a passive game. Whoa, there's a big scan. Big scout into the Viking Liberator army. Again, that Koss already knew was on the way. So Koss, I think he made a couple of Thors. He's got missile turrets set up. Yep, he does. And he's also on his way to battle cruisers. Oh my lord. Super, super late game TvT. Trinoff. Thank you for the Prime sub. What was I talking about? I was talking about something before those Hellbats moved in, but, well, I lost track of it. So, whatever, doesn't matter. God's a lot of air army. Okay. Well, I would attempt to cast this, but what is even happening? 12 Vikings of Koss to 8 Vikings of Soul. Soul has 8 Liberators, though, that actually can add a little bit to the air army, but that was not it. That was not what they were supposed to contribute. They basically just tanked shots right there. And didn't get their own shots. So Koss is still barely going to win the air war because a battlecruiser warps in, but he did lose all of his Vikings. Battlecruiser warped in because it knew nothing else was involved. He had a sensor tower available, he had vision on the army. They kind of reset their armies, and the battlecruiser reigned supreme when there was only 2, if not, actually, there wasn't even 2 Vikings left over. The reinforcements of Koss were faster, so yeah, of course the battlecruiser reigned supreme, but it does teleport in and reveal itself. So it wasn't quite certain for Sol that battlecruisers were going to be on the way. You know, you do expect at least 1 pre-battlecruiser fight, if not 2 or 3. Now that he knows that battlecruisers are on the way, there's a little bit more of a timer, and he has to make another decision. Do I continue trying to be the guy with the superior economy and just kind of ram Vikings down your throat? Or do I also try to go to battlecruisers? Because eventually, pure battlecruiser is where you want to be. 1 teleport is available, but not for the other one, I believe. The other one did die. Sol remaxing quicker than Koss expected on those Vikings in particular. Did not have his Thors quite ready to go. Didn't position his tanks. No missile turrets either to help out. Sol does get a bit of a lead there. Now, I was very specific. He remaxed faster on the Vikings, but Koss is actually remaxing because he has battle cruisers on the way, as well as some Vikings and Hellions, but they were on the way. So he loses that command center, but I don't think he cares. Koss is on 2,200 minerals and maxed out. He's got this situation here happening. 6 orbitals, casually. So I don't think he cared about that command center dying. Sol is not quite in the same boat. He does have extra orbitals to slap down mules, but he does not have that much of a bank. Even though he's been expanding a little bit faster than his opponent, he's been taking worse trades. About 2,000 resources less good than Koss, but there's the battlecruisers for Sol. Oh my goodness. You don't get too many battlecruiser games anymore. Worth noting that Thors pack of a hell of a punch against battlecruisers, and Koss is currently one with Thors. But also worth noting is that while Koss had double upgrades, he did prioritize the ground upgrades, which makes sense, but I think what would have been better, and we see from some other players occasionally, I think he should have stopped at +2 vehicle weapons and already moved on to ship weapons. Then he'd at least be finishing up +2 instead of +1. It's a nitpick. A lot of things have happened in this game that it doesn't make it completely obvious this is the situation we would have found ourselves in. But Sol actually has the upgrade lead. 3-3 on his battlecruisers and Vikings against just the 1-3 of Koss. So that could be, that could contribute. Now at the point of killing SCVs, Koss might want to kill even 10 more. Yeah. Liberator's gonna help him out with that. Liberator left, drop to the right. Hard to call it a doom drop. It is more of a sacrificial drop. Sol is also getting rid of supply to build more battle cruisers, so it's just looking for something. Gonna find an armory. Funnily enough, Koss only needs 1 armory alive anyways. And, ooh, he's not gonna get it. Not gonna get 1 armory. He's gonna have to rebuild that and fall even further behind on the upgrades. 3 battle cruisers coming on the left side, killing a bunch of missile turrets while they can, while they have the freedom to, but the teleport is good. Teleport out and return, please. Ooh. Teleport on teleport. Koss is pretty quick to rebuild that armory, but it's 3-3 against 1-3, and that's going to be the case for quite some time. Sol, I feel like, is also remaxing faster on pure battlecruiser, and that's going to be, I mean, it's a composition decision right now, and what is better, pure battlecruiser, and I'm talking pure battlecruiser, or half battlecruiser, half Viking. And half Raven, actually. That's another thing we have to consider. Ravens can interference matrix battlecruisers, and that's pretty effective, taking the entire battlecruiser out of the mix. They can anti-armor missile the entire air army, which is pretty prone to clumping, and that's pretty damn good. The nice thing about Koss's upgrades is that at least he does have +3 armor on the battlecruisers to help them out, to help out their base naturally high armor. But that would be taken away by an anti-armor missile. -3 armor. So ravens are a necessity, and Sol is starting to make up his ravens. Chaos is going to have a bigger army at this rate as he continues... Oh, wait, no. Sol is killing his own SCVs. Somewhere. I don't know where. But whatever. Anyways. Chaos is still going to have a slightly bigger army. 42 workers to 52 workers. Chaos also with a much bigger bank in both minerals and gas is better off killing his workers this fast than Sol is. But Sol also needs to get a big army. He's going to take the middle rights as Chaos probably looks towards the middle left. If Sol gets both middle bases, that's a problem for Chaos, because we are talking super late game TvT, where we're discussing minerals being left over, gases being left over. It's gonna come down to that on one of our biggest maps with plenty of bases. We might get to a point where they are fighting each other over the last 50 Vespian gas. Maybe. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So currently Kos, what are the compositions here? They both are almost maxed out. Kos has 8 Thors to Sol's 0. But Sol has 10 battlecruisers to Kos's 4. Kos has 6 Ravens to 2 Ravens of Sol. And Kos has 29 Vikings, 25 Ravens of Sol. Vikings, sorry. Oh my god, the fight is happening. Anti-armor missile goes down. It seems more effectively for Sol on top of Kos's army, but Kos and his Thors, I think, are actually wrecking face right now. The Vikings were so good. The Ravens, I think, got interference matrix. And then the Thors on the ground were not taken out quickly whatsoever. Kos obliterates Sol's army and has a banked remax so much faster. He takes out the army, takes out the middle right base, and Sol is back down to just 100 supply. This is not looking good for Sol. I think he lost the ultimate late game army. Kos was like, you know what? I don't want you to have that right base. Fuck you. And he just took it from him. Just took it. At the end, it wasn't even really a contest. I was gonna say, while I was reading off those numbers, that Kos seems to have the better army, but let's talk about positioning, and then they just literally rammed each other's armies into each other. But I guess that was great. Kos had a better army type. I think Sol might have, I don't know about forgotten about Thors, but kind of figured that Thors wouldn't be as helpful as having 6 extra battlecruisers. And I think properly positioned, that might be true. Like, the battlecruisers take out the Thors and then don't get shot by the Thors that often. You know, they pop off Yamatos and then run away, and then they come back later. I think that's when they're better, right? But the battlecruisers, just as far as, like, ramming their head into Thors and Ravens, that's where they're a little more questionable. They don't really get to do the micro that makes them really powerful. Sol not going to give up because he has so many bases. There is maybe a comeback potential if he can also be taking down Kos's bases, but that is not happening. Sol has lost 3 bases to the right, a 4th and 5th about to go down, and if those go down, the 6th base is also going to go down. Kos, I do believe he's won this game. He still has the Thors too, so he could change half of them into splash and half of them to single target and take out the Sol Viking army. Kind of the only army he could really afford, and also the fastest army he could make, because battles just take so long. So that's the army he currently has. Sol is back to Viking Liberator with a bio ground force, hoping to catch Kos, being a little too overeager. But Kos actually being pretty patient. He moves and takes out a bunch of bases, but he's had siege tanks protecting his Thors, Ravens, and Vikings, all helping each other. I mean, their synergy is real right now for Kos's army. But that's about only half his army. The other half has remaxed on the left side and is about to go take out Sol's perhaps last mining base. Sol's army on the right is trying to take down Kos's Thor army. He's not doing a terrible job of it, I suppose. Simply put, for that engagement, Sol had all of his army compared to 50%, so it makes sense he would win that fight. But he also got his Liberates doing a lot of extra damage. They did siege up, they did get their shots off, but now they're all dead. They are kind of suicidal when they're trying to take on Thors. They're like, how many shots do I get before I die? Koss might have lost a decent number of expensive, slow-building units down there, but he has already rebuilt them. He did not take out the middle left base. The battlecruiser is killing the SCVs anyways, and Sol is now down to sub-20 workers with barely any bank. He desperately needs the gases. Battlecruiser simply evacuates. Sol, what's the plan here? How does he bring this game back? Nothing but planetaries popping up for Koss because he still has plenty of minerals. He's also a little low on the gas, but he's on a good army supply, so it's okay if he builds planetaries. So the drops don't really work out. You have to really commit to killing a planetary. Although they don't have building armor, so there is that. Single battlecruiser warps in to take care of this drop. Even bothers to repair it. Didn't even have to worry. Scans going down left and right for both parties. Sol looking for the army. Koss looking for bases. Saying, okay, how far ahead am I? And the answer is he's pretty damn far ahead. Sol, I think now that he's been given a shot in this game, is thinking, if I can just max out, maybe I can do this. But he's taking so long to max out. Koss is the first one to push into a concave of Bio. But I don't know if the Bio can take on that army. GG. Koss with the 2-1 over Sol. Might sound like an upset, but I think in TvT it is not. It still is quite impressive for this guy to be into the round of 4. I think one of the first times, if not the